You're listening to Best Forevers, a podcast for kindred spirits, a podcast that encourages you to love more in your friends and to further consider the issues that plague friendships. I'm Alysa Lucas, and I got a few questions to answer myself. Okay, so here we go. Best looking celebrity. Leonardo DiCaprio? I mean, he is pretty handsome. Or how about Chris Hemsworth without the long Thor hair? Yes. Okay, we're going to say that. Chris Hemsworth. All right, second question. Favorite song? Okay, so for this one, I would say most recently, High Hopes by Panic at the Disco, because Brendan Urie has the voice of an angel. And favorite class and teacher? Mrs. Brovant from 6th grade who taught English. I had a very memorable book report when I dressed up like Amelia Earhart. The good news for me is that I don't remember my parents taking a photo, so no, I can't share it online. So you might be wondering why I'm asking myself these questions. Well, friends, I'm feeling nostalgic after having coffee with a friend, and the idea of slam books came up. Now, some of you might be like immediate PTSD, where you're just like, no, that was a 6th grade nightmare. Or some other people might be like, what are you talking about? Slam books are fun. We don't do it the mean way, right? But it's amazing how an unsuspecting notebook could both bring friends together and completely tear them apart. In this episode, I like to talk about slam books, known also as burn books, with the release of the 2004 movie Mean Girls. What are they, how they work, and how they impact friendships both in the past and even today in 2020. Most of the web pages I looked at explained how one could start a slam book or a burn book. And they all said to start with a cute notebook, obviously, right? So you can go to Target, get yourself a $1 notebook. You can jazz it up yourself, or you can find one that's really cute that has cute things on it, and that's where you start. Now, if you've seen Mean Girls, you know the burn book was pink. And a lot of burn books typically have the spiral to make it easier to flip through the pages, to write in, to lay flat, all that kind of good stuff. But what I recall from when I was a tween and teenager when slam books were popular in the 80s and 90s, what I remembered is that marbled black and white bound notebook, like the one that was required for my chemistry class in high school. But on the inside of the slam book or the burn book, you might see a few different things. So people go about doing these things in different ways. First, you might have questions like I answered at the start of the episode. On the first page, the lines would be numbered from 1 to how many lines the page had, like 24. And then what you would do is you would sign into the notebook. So let's say I picked number 5, and that's where my name would go. Then when I flipped the page, every page after that would have some fun question at the top, and there would be the numbers 1 through 24 on each page as well. And I answer all my questions on the line for number 5. So it can be something like, what's your favorite concert? What do you want to do this summer? Like just any sort of questions to pass the time, get to know people. And so far, that doesn't seem too problematic. In fact, you're like, that seems like fun, right? I'm like, let's do this thing, right? And so the second way you might see slam books work is kind of like what you see in yearbooks when you have for each class, first year through seniors, most likely to succeed, funniest, and other obviously super relevant categories that young people need to know the answers to in an anonymous format immediately, right? That's what it's about. So you would get the slam book and you would go through the categories that your classmate put at the top of each page, and you would list the classmate you think fits the category best, like the cutest boy or the girl with the best hair, cutest couple, like, again, all the really important things. And you might sense a tone like that sounds like something that Alysa obviously did when she was 12 years old, and you'd be exactly right. And this isn't so bad. It's like, hey, this person's cool, or this person has amazing eyes, and that's all reinforcement and supportive, and who wouldn't want to have something like that? So this I'm still on board with, but it doesn't necessarily seem like something you might go, adults are doing that right now. But then again, we have awards and different things online that we can have all these things. And so it might be like, I know that there's a department at my school who does awards, and they even have things like best dressed teacher and all that. So I still think that rolls through to some things that we see happening here or there in our life. But finally, The slam book can take a method where you really get at the slam part of the name. And this is the method that's most likely to be called a burn book. So the second version of what I just described, like most likely to succeed, instead of having something fun or positive or supportive, those categories are going to get nastier and meaner, like ugliest, sluttiest, bitchiest. Insert anything that's really, really mean or could be cruel to other people. And there you have it. You have a burn book. Okay. So one of the things, though, is that when you get it, then you are going to have a name of a person on each different page, and the people receiving the book would write whatever they wanted to about that person. So like in Mean Girls, when they call the teacher a pusher, she pushes, right? Or someone's a fugly slut. And I don't remember us doing this per se in middle school, but some users might add photos and draw things on the person's photo or about the person, including a series of comments about that person. So they might draw pictures. One way to think about it is sort of defacing someone's photo or, drawing something on the wall in the bathroom, which also includes comments and vulgar statements and all sorts of inappropriate things and people's phone numbers and that kind of stuff, right? So it seems like we start out in a world of fun and getting to know people, and then we can start moving into a method that becomes much more dangerous and problematic, bringing in gossip, rumors, insults, criticism, and negativity to pen and paper. But essentially, a slam book is a cross between a diary and passing notes in class. And what's important to this process is this. Obviously, as we've already learned, the notebook is critical. And in a lot of ways, people might design it as they answer questions. So they can draw on it. They might add their taste to what the notebook looks like. If the person who started the slam book or burn book, they might dress it up or do it up. But a lot of times, the outside might just look cute so that people don't get caught doing mean things like talking trash and writing insults about their friends and acquaintances and classmates, right? So, but the notebook is really important. The second essential aspect of this process is that you have to have something to say, whether it be positive or negative, and you need some series of questions, categories, or some free-form blank space where really people can take it to the next negative level is typically what happens. But again, maybe we should go positive. Do some drawings for people, maybe flowers or something nice, right? Maybe a little unicorn, who knows, right? But obviously what's even more important is that if people have something to say and they're saying things that are negative, then what encourages people to do it or where they might feel comfortable doing it is because it comes from a level of anonymity. So they just write it and their name isn't attached and no one might know that they're the one that said it. And so that somewhere in this world, people were writing bad things about their friends, and then someone found out because someone said something or saw something, even though you thought it was private in the sense of you were anonymous, it can really turn ugly. And one of the things that is pretty important to the points that we were just talking about, you have to have something to say, you have to have some level of anonymity, and then leading into this third point, you have to have a group of folks with a common point of reference. So meaning that if you're going to talk about people, it's not like you just go up to someone on the street and be like, fill this out, and they're on the first page. They're like, who's Jocelyn? I don't know. Write something about her. Who's David? I don't know. Who's Jalen? I don't know. Right? It's like there's a point of reference, so it's going to be part of a school, a class, a group, maybe a house so people live together, a workplace. You have to have some connection. And these are three things that lead to having gossip. And so when I teach gossip in my dark side of interpersonal communication class, that's what we talk about. Like, when is an environment welcoming for gossip? And I think it would be the same sort of environment that would be inviting or comfortable for a slam book or a burn book. Because, first off, there's a level of sociability that includes people. It feels private. And you have that point of reference, so you have something in common. And that is going to be a breeding ground for gossip. And so slam books can come out of that, or we'll talk about how it sort of situates itself in 2020. The last thing that has been noted, and when we see examples of slam books and burn books, we're looking at Mean Girls. There was a Facts of Life episode, so they were in a private school. So in the Facts of Life episode, there, those girls are in, middle school to high school, but it's like a private school type situation. And then you have examples from books written by some of my favorites, like The Sweet Valley High, ghostwritten by Francine Pascal. And so that's going to happen in high school. And that book is called Slam Book Fever. So, in the future, me and Claire need to cover that for book club or for patrons, because I obviously am already been on Amazon looking for that book. And then, of course, my other favorite, Anne M. Martin, who wrote the Babysitters Club series, has a book called Slam Book. And the idea here is what's commonly associated is that it typically happens from elementary through high school, and as well as it's most often associated with girls, like in Mean Girls, right? And so that's not to say that boys aren't included. Oh, certainly they are, or they're certainly making comments. So this is not something that only is encouraged and pressured into, like, girls are not the only ones doing it. They're more likely to be associated with it. And we know historically and just typically for the American culture, and so you can think about your culture if you're listening from another location, that we in America, we socialize girls to be attuned to their relationships. And so, of course, there's more likely to be talking about people and interacting with people and trying to help people and trying to bring people down if you're thinking about social comparison and other topics like that that can be related to this topic, that they are going to be associated with that socialization. So I think one of my favorite sources was the WikiHow webpage, which outlines the steps of the burn book process, because one of the comments even said, quote, "Why would you even recommend this? It's mean," end quote. And many of you might be thinking right now or remember it being a horrible experience as a tween or a teenager. And the response to this question was interesting, though. It said, quote, "Because some people don't know how to express their feelings, and this could be a good way to do so," end quote. So it comes down to, why would anyone participate in a slam book or a burn book? And I think, that's kind of a fascinating response back. So the first reason why people might do something like this is because they don't have an outlet for expression. However, the communication person in me has got to believe that there is a better and healthier way to express our feelings and our feelings about someone else, and how we can handle some sort of conflict or problem among friends, acquaintances, classmates, coworkers, or whatever the case might be. So some of the things that I can think of that might be a better way to do it might be a personal diary or journal. So it's not actually passing something among all of the people in this common reference point situation, right? And so you could have a blog without naming specific people. Maybe you write blog posts about why it can be hard to have friends in middle school, or, there's lots of ways to do it. Start a podcast, y'all. But again, don't name specific people. You can also talk to a confidant, a therapist, a parent, a roommate, a partner, a friend. There's lots of people that we can have sort of those event sessions with in which to deal with it. There's other ways to express ourselves and kind of deal with things like painting, drawing, making music, and just so much more. So I get their point, and I think it's important to recall in most cases when you have slam books and burn books, you are generally talking about young folks who might not be able to foresee the consequences of writing something down on a piece of paper then that other people might see, and then can be collected by a teacher or a principal, and there could be detentions and suspensions and broken friendships and fights, and there's so many things that slam books open the door for, right? It deals with envy and jealousy, gossip, rumors, bullying, teasing, revenge. The list could go on and on and on, and I'll have specific episodes that cover a lot of those topics in the upcoming weeks and months. But the thing is, what good can come from the slam book, right? So, that could be leading into the next reason. That could be leading into the next reason why people might participate in a slam book or burn book. So as I was talking about, there's many versions of us seeing slam books in TV shows like Facts of Life, in books like Sweet Valley High, and of course, Mean Girls. And one of the reasons why people might participate or start something like that is because popularity might be an important motivator, as seen in a lot of these examples. So in a way, what's happening is someone may start a slam book because they want to see where they might stand in terms of comparison to other people, which connects back to social comparison, which I talked about a couple episodes ago, right? So we do this all the time. We'll like, how do we stack up against other people? Are we doing okay? What's going on? But people might do it and like, okay, who do they think is the prettiest girl, or who do they think is the smartest, or who's a nerd, or who's whatever the case is. You start to get an idea of how other people view you, but that view can be skewed because if there's that level of anonymity and someone is mad at you, then they might lash out, and then, it might not even be what they truly think about you, or people are just mean and they'll just say things and they don't even make sense, or there's no rhyme or reason to it. And you're just like, why are you so mean and being mean all the time? You're mean. Like, why? Why are you doing it? But one of the things is typically the burn books and the slam books might have an outcome that would let everyone know in that common point of reference in that group where people stand, like who is popular and who is not popular. So in a lot of ways, popularity can be life or death in K through 12, right? Specifically, I'm thinking middle school and high school, but this idea of being liked and wanting to know it and not having as many negative comments as someone else, or that feeling of being absolutely hated and humiliated, like sometimes that ends up happening too, because people tear other people down to make themselves feel better. So as you might imagine, the third reason why people start slam books and burn books is because it's a way to specifically tease, bully, and target other people, to gossip, to spread rumors, and to decimate one person's or more people's reputation. Reading what people think of us, all that criticism at once, can be really hurtful. And so this made me think about that sometimes, but not all the time, I do talk about complaints and criticism in my Dark Side of Interpersonal and Communication class. And so I have a couple readings that I share in the class. One is by William R. Kupak, and another one is Robin Kowalski and her colleague, Janet Erickson. And so the first one is, "You're bugging me, complaints and criticisms from a partner." And then the Kowalski one is complaining, "What's all the fuss," right? So those articles really break down what the idea of complaints and criticism are. Complaints are expression of dissatisfaction, whether subjectively experienced or not, for the purpose of venting emotion, changing others' behaviors, or both. And criticism is when you analyze and judge someone based on their faults or mistakes. Now, some things, mistakes shouldn't be that big of a deal, am I right? And sometimes, faults are really not a fault. We might judge people unfairly and too harshly. And so, but how we judge people might then be how we communicate about them. And so slam books are giving people an outlet to complain and criticize, again, without people thinking that there's any sort of consequences, and sort of getting dumped with a whole host of criticisms from your peers or from people you thought were your friends or people that you enjoy spending time with can be very difficult. But a lot of times people complain and do all that because for ourselves personally, there is something soothing and cathartic about being able to vent, right? But then interpersonally, we might do these things like mentioned, having social comparison. We might try to present ourselves as cool and, just strong and lots of other characteristics by participating or starting a slam book and burn book. We also have behavioral compliance, accountability, and punishment. So what can happen is that people think that they have the right to make these judgments and to make these criticisms. And so by doing that, they're thinking that the person reading it is going to be like, wow, people really think I'm annoying. I'm going to go change my behavior. But that might end up happening, but what it might do is just hurt someone's self-esteem, their identity, their ability to trust people because they thought the people who did this were their friends, and it can just drum up a lot of hurt and negative emotions in someone and make it difficult to go to school every day or to work or being around people who are treating them in a nasty way. So I would think that these criticisms are dangerous, and we should think about that, because when we complain and criticize, it is contagious. So when we start doing it, people are like, oh yeah, let me tell you about my complaint. And so when you have a slam book, you're just sort of awakening the storm. You're starting the zombie apocalypse. There's all sorts of zombies coming out of every crook and nanny to come out and complain and criticize. But if we are positive, that is also contagious. So that's something to be mindful of if we're in the workplace and something like this is happening, that it can be something that really catches on. So, but as you can imagine, that most people would rather not have their personality criticized. According to the readings that I share in my classes, most people rather be criticized for specific behaviors than about who they are as an individual. So I can be a good person and make a mistake. I can be a funny person and be late to work, and people might criticize for me. And so don't say, well, funny people are, I don't know. That was an example that came off the top of my head. But the idea is that if you're talking about who I am as a person versus how I'm behaving in a particular situation, we find it more hurtful to have that personality be put down. So some of the things that can make it even worse, and that's where slam books and these other burn books can come in, is the manner in which they are presented to a person. So a slam book is especially harsh. So it's even more hurtful to hear criticisms when the delivery is harsh or demeaning or belligerent. It all adds insult to injury, as well as it being public in a slam book versus privately working it out among people. What we end up doing is taking that information even worse than we would if there were other circumstances, and we end up personalizing it all. So it can be really difficult. But when we actually do criticism, which we get evaluated and judged all the time, especially in the workplace, that when you do need to criticize someone, you don't use the word criticism as a negative connotation. So one of the tips that can be given is to call it feedback. You want to do the criticism or the feedback immediately, so it's not waiting for the behavior to continue. You start with the positive feedback and you end with the negative feedback. You only do one criticism at a time. It's not like, here's 47, which a slam book might do, or even think about a blank space where people can write, draw, and do anything they want. You want to give specific examples. You want to talk about what decisions are made. You want to use language like I observed. You want to separate the behavior from the person, and really you're focusing on the who I am versus what I am. And all of that comes from my mom, Nancy, who did a lot of performance reviews and those sorts of meetings with people in her career. And so that was advice she gave me when I was teaching the class for Dark Side. But overall, I think that part of what's happening is we're criticizing people, and it can be mean, and it's seen as teasing and bullying being a little bit more aggressive, over the long term, intentional, and often can be about power differences. Like popularity can be a power difference. But one of the things that it comes down to when I do talk about teasing and bullying, we talk about cruel teasing. And that is going to be sort of you're moving from teasing to bullying. It has moderate levels of humor, so it's not exactly funny, but it might be like, okay. It's moderately ambiguous, so it's not always precisely clear what people are trying to say, but it's very high in identity confrontation, which gets at, in criticisms, you don't want to attack the person, but cruel teasing and bullying and slam books and burn books are highly confrontational. They are highly threatening to people's identity. And when we are trying to develop our self-esteem, maintain our self-esteem, trying to balance all sorts of things going on in our life, including mental health, that obviously something like a slam book or a burn book would be particularly problematic. So the fourth reason why people might participate in slam books and burn books is because the first method seems like a great way to get to know a group of folks, as long as it stays positive. You can ask all sorts of questions, get to know each other, pass it back and forth, go around and read other people's comments. It could be a lot of fun. And if you are an adult and you are of drinking age, it could be a fun drinking game, right? But even more, this could be a fun and unique way to provide support and compliments to friends, acquaintances, classmates, coworkers, whoever. And you better believe I'm already thinking about how I can incorporate a positive slam book into my friendiversary party this weekend. So we'll see how it turns out. And I will accept names. Instead of a slam book, what are we going to call it? Like a support book? That doesn't sound as cool. So send me all your ideas for what we can call the positive slam book. I'm excited, right? Now, certainly, friends, the purpose of this episode is not to encourage anyone to start a book today unless it's a strictly fun, positive way to get to know people or to support them. And certainly I'm not like, hey, let's have all those bad feelings from when you were a tween or a teenager, right? It's not the idea there. It might be, let's think about how it applies now, because the ebbs and flows of life and generations might bring these back. And young people and their parents and all of us could consider what you might do if this activity were to resurface today. But maybe more importantly is to consider that slam books and burn books already exist in different ways today, and that's called social media. Think of it this way. The internet can be anonymous in the sense that people you don't even know can offer their 2 cents on any photo or comment or judgment of you without truly knowing who you are, why this person is posting about you, or the context in which they are speaking. But even more, people we know can create fake accounts online in which they can like, comment, retweet, or share different insults, criticisms, and other slams, if you will, against people that they're in a fight with, that they don't like, that's their frenemy or their enemy, or they're doing social comparison and trying to make themselves feel better by putting other people down. However, I don't think people may care as much about being anonymous as we know is essential to having slam books and burn books, because we see people troll, bully, and gaslight others online, and it's connected to their actual personal account. And in some cases, it's attached to their professional account. And you're like, what? What are you doing? And like, why are you doing this? Don't you know that it's connected to you? And so that opens the door to getting backlash for behaving in this way. And that person could then be slammed themselves, right? And then they could be doxxed. And doxxed is when your phone number, your address, or any of that other information is shared to let people's bosses know, to let their partners know, any of these sorts of things that might be happening as a way to show people that they shouldn't have done it and that they're wrong, ways to get revenge. And it just opens up a can of worms that we just want to keep closed. It's thinking that the books can be used as a way to bully people in school and face-to-face, but like most things, the opportunity to bully others has gone digital. What would you tell yourself, a friend, or your child about how to handle if A, they feel pressure to join in online or in a hard copy slam book sort of situation, right? Where there's sort of like the group mentality, the build up, public shaming, all that kind of stuff that happens online today. B, if someone writes comments about them in a book or online or in any sort of format, like those of you who are teachers like me, we get student opinion surveys. Aren't those like semester slam books? I don't know. But again, those can be positive as well. And so I thank people for the kind comments on my student opinion surveys. And C, what would you tell them or yourself about what consequences they'd experience if they participated? Burn books can be destroyed, right? That might be why they're called burn books. You just set those babies on fire. Or maybe they're called burn books because they set the whole world on fire. But nonetheless, they're not necessarily things that might stay around forever. But anything online now versus when Alysa was, 12 years old, anything online can be saved, screenshotted, shared, and maybe searchable online for the foreseeable future. And so when people go to get jobs, when people go out on dates, when people are looking for a professional expert, these other comments and things that we make about other people and that they make about us can be viewed by other people. It becomes even more public than what might be in the small group of common reference. What you have is it expands to the entire world. And boy, it can go viral, it can go fast, it can shut people's life down, it can turn their life upside down. And certainly digital slam books are very problematic, right? So here's what not to do. Don't start a negative slam book or burn book because here are the reasons. It will destroy their reputation and it's likely to destroy your own reputation. It causes chaos in groups, schools, workplaces, houses, and online situations, so much so that there can be such hard feelings that it can be hard to resolve any situation and get it back to something that can be civil and pleasant and enjoyable and positive. It is definitely not the most competent way to express one's feelings. There's lots of ways to handle criticisms and concerns that we have with our friends and other people that we spend a lot of time with. It's going to lead to a lot of hurt feelings and anger, and some of the things that can happen when people feel hurt and anger and they feel like they have to defend themselves, what might end up happening is it then turns into revenge. And revenge is a hard cycle to end because they got you, and then you get them, and then they got you, and you get them. It's like a merry-go-round. When is it going to stop, though? How do you get off this ride that is never ending? And not only that, but revenge, as it continues to cycle, also escalates in terms of harshness, aggressiveness, and language, and comments, and insults, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. So how do you stop it? And that can cause larger problems. Certainly a reason why not to do it would be that it is obviously a form of bullying. And one of the things to consider is that it is likely to be untrue information or at least someone's bad take on other people. And we're often meaner to people that we dislike. And so people reading that will take it to heart potentially. And when you read other people's comments, people might take that as truth. And we have to, again, be like, this sounds like fake news about people I work with or my friends, right? And again, it is just mean. It's mean people being mean, and kindness is free, and we should sprinkle that everywhere, literally. So what can we do about it? You got to flip that script because criticisms can be contagious. There are a couple of things that I think you can do. Number one is change it, flip that script, move it from negative to positive. Start putting positive comments. Start doing like compliments or other things in which to support them, because when people start to see those things, they might change their tune, right? And so you want to think about what we do to others, do we want them to do to us? Or how do you want to pay it forward? Do you want to pay it forward with nastiness or with kindness? And so I always say flip it and do the positive. Or maybe even do more general and not person-specific complaints about life to give folks an outlet to express themselves. So actually, it can be fun to complain about things as long as we're not complaining about specific people or our friends, especially when they're not there. But also, for some people, it can be fun. We used to call that snaps when I was in middle school and high school, where it's like, you would just cut on each other. It's like your mama jokes back and forth, right? Some people enjoy that. That's not my favorite thing to do with my friends, but some people, that can be their thing. But you have to know what this is about. It can be general. And I'm part of a Facebook group that's all about complaining. And so it's just venting and being like, I hate it when the tags are on pillows are too long and it scratches my neck at night. Like, it's like whatever you want. That can be fun. But talking about other people can then cause a lot more other communicative and relational problems. If you're online, you can report the comments and the poster, and that is, thanks for that. But also, Twitter, Facebook, and all those people, they need to be on board about what things are a violation of the rules and what are not violations of the rules. Because I feel like a lot of times people with good intentions will report bullying or gaslighting or trolling, and then Facebook will be like, that didn't violate it. And you're like, but this person's nasty, racist, sexist, homophobic comment was fine? Like, cool, right? Like, what are you doing? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, whatever place you're on. But the one thing I would say is don't engage because it'll never end. you'll suck away 5 hours, 5 days, 5 months of your life going back and forth. And again, revenge is hard to stop. So a good way to handle it when it's online is just to report it and move on. And then be gracious in a response. Or the idea is that we don't lower ourselves. It's like Michelle Obama, when they go low, we go high. And so being gracious in the response. And so I was looking at this Huffington Post article about how to graciously respond to people when they say or do things that are inappropriate or rude. And that's in the show notes if you want to see some of the other options of how to handle things. They do like catcalling, just a wide range of things. But one of the things is if someone makes a comment or says something nasty, you just like turn around. And so the example they gave was, "Oh my God, you look so tired. Are you tired?" And you can say, "No, I'm not tired. I'm having a great day. Are you having a good day too?" And then boom, you're moving on. Ignore or move on. But sometimes we do have to sit down and have these conversations because although it might be difficult to have the conversation at first, it's easier to sit down and talk about the issue you might have with someone rather than creating a whole new issue by commenting online, posting something online, doing a slam book, or any of the other rude things that we did in the 80s, 90s, and now. So think about it. Was this a blast from the past for you, or did you learn something new today because you're like, I've never heard of any of these things, or how many of you are like, this happened all the time in school? I definitely want to hear about your experiences. I want to hear about how you see slam books happening now, what you would call a positive slam book, and any sort of experiences you think would be good to hear. I want to hear it all. So you can message me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at bestforeverspod, or you can email me at bestforeverspod@gmail.com. Please share everything, either blast from the past. Does anyone still have their slam book? Who's read Slam Book Fever? What do you do now in high school and in college? What do you see that people do that's like slam books online? I want to know it all. So please and thank you. So until next time, friends, let's focus on spreading support and compliments instead of insults and criticisms, because without our friends, who would we be? Thanks for listening to Best Forevers. If you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and of course, share with a friend. Please be sure to follow Best Forevers on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at bestforeverspod, and I'm at Dr. Alysa Lucas on Twitter. You can always find the podcast webpage for more information at bestforeverspod.com, and share your stories of friendship by emailing me at bestforeverspod@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support the movement to love on our friends more, check out the podcast on patreon.com/bestforeverspod. Now, friends, check out this recommended podcast that you must get in your ear holes immediately.
I'm Nicole.
And I'm Sarah, and we are the Homance Chronicles.
The Homance Chronicles is an adult comedy podcast where we laugh like this all of the time at our real life. It's what happens, where we talk about everything from dating disasters
to poor choices after drinking entirely way too much.
We always drink too much.
That's a terrible thing.
It leads to awkward encounters.
Both sober and drunk, though.
True.
That's very true.
The Twilight Zone is real. It's the ultimate girl talk where we share everything.
Everything. Butt stuff.
Yeah, all the stuff. You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. Just search the Homance Chronicles. And if you haven't figured it out, Homance is the girl version of a bromance. So get ready to giggle along.